You're watching True Crime Archives, real mysteries in just minutes. Let's dive into the case.
Footprints appeared in the snow, leading toward a small farmhouse, but none ever led away. Days later, 6 people were found dead, their bodies stacked in the barn. And the strangest part, whoever killed them stayed in the house for days afterward. This is the story of the Hinterkaifeck Murders, one of the most chilling unsolved crimes in history. Hinterkaifeck wasn't a village, it was barely a dot on the map. A lonely farmhouse surrounded by woods about 70 kilometers north of Munich. In 1922, the Gruber family lived there. Andreas and Cecilia, their adult daughter Victoria, her 2 children, and the maid Maria Baumgartner. 6 people. Cut off from neighbors, with the forest pressing close on all sides. What happened on that farm would soon terrify all of Germany. It began quietly. In the days before the murders, Andreas Gruber told neighbors he'd noticed footprints in the snow leading from the forest directly to the house, but none leading back. Then strange sounds echoed from the attic. He searched and found nothing, yet every night the noises returned. A newspaper appeared on their doorstep that no one in the family had subscribed to, and the family keys went missing. Even more unsettling, their old maid had quit weeks earlier, saying the house was haunted. Maria, the new maid, started her first day on March 31st. She wouldn't live to see the next sunrise. When the family didn't show up at church, neighbors grew worried. The mailman noticed letters piling up. Finally, on April 4th, 3 villagers went to check the farm. Inside the barn, beneath piles of hay, they found 4 bodies stacked together. Andreas, his wife Cecilia, Victoria, and young Cecilia, only 7 years old. Each had been struck repeatedly with a mattock, a heavy farming tool. Inside the house, they found Maria, the maid, and Josef, the 2-year-old boy, both killed in their beds. No valuables were stolen. Nothing suggested a robbery, but the killer had done something unthinkable. For days after the murders, neighbors saw smoke rising from the chimney. Someone had been feeding the cattle, eating food from the kitchen, even slicing meat from the pantry. Fresh footprints and candle wax were found inside. Investigators realized that the killer had lived in the farmhouse for up to 4 days after the murders. He cared for the animals. He cooked meals. He slept inside the house, surrounded by the dead. When the police arrived, they found the doors locked from the inside. It was as if the murderer had vanished into thin air. Police combed the scene for clues. They found the murder weapon buried in hay, the family's own mattock. The phone line had been cut. Fingerprints were smudged, possibly wiped away. Dozens of suspects were questioned. Neighbors, ex-lovers, drifters, even relatives. But no one fit all the details. Rumors spread through Bavaria like wildfire. Some said Victoria had a secret relationship with a local man named Lorenz Schlittenbauer, who had once been engaged to her. He was one of the men who found the bodies. Police wondered, had he returned to confront her? Yet Lorenz denied everything, and while many villagers believed he was guilty, no solid proof was ever found. The murders became national news. Even decades later, the case was reopened, but always ended the same way, with more questions than answers. Several details still puzzle investigators today. There were no defensive wounds, suggesting the victims were lured calmly to the barn, one by one. The The youngest daughter's hair was clutched in her hands, evidence she may have survived for hours after the attack. The killer covered the bodies with hay, as if ashamed or remorseful. And in the attic, police found signs that someone had been living there before the murders: straw bedding and food scraps. Whoever did this may have been watching the family for days, maybe weeks, waiting for the right moment. The farmhouse was eventually torn down in 1923, but not before investigators tried one last thing. They removed the victims' heads and sent them to Munich for psychic examination. Yes, they actually asked clairvoyants to look for visions of the killer. The skulls were later lost during World War II bombings. To this day, no DNA or physical evidence remains. All that's left is the story and the land where the farmhouse once stood. Locals say at night you can still hear the cattle lowing, even though there hasn't been a farm there in a century. The footprints, the attic noises, the missing keys, the ghostly smoke after death. Hinterkaifeck isn't just a murder. It's a story about fear, isolation, and the darkness that grows when the world stops watching. But the question remains: who killed the Gruber family? In our next episode, we dive deep into the theories, from jealous lovers to soldiers and even supernatural explanations, to uncover what might have happened on that frozen night in 1922.